certification that is called SAPSA. So I've touched on a lot of different certification. That not only the certification, but I've been a hands-on person. So I've never spent more than a year without being a hands-on. So every time I'm doing something, I'm always on hands-on. And I've worked on more than 200 projects and different projects. And all those 200 plus projects that I've worked on are always very different. As I mentioned yesterday, two projects are never the same, but even when I'm working on the same system, the project is different. And that's what is beautiful with when you do cyber. Especially I've had the chance to work mostly as consultant in most places during my career, and even in my work that I do now, I work mostly as a consultant for the whole company. So different team comes to me for review, assessment, and design of their solution, and that have allowed me to be able to touch on different things, and that's how I gain the knowledge. Um, so that's pretty much it. What I've done. I've done, as we will talk in the next few minutes, some of the areas where you can, get your feet wet with security. Like if you want to get into cybersecurity, there are different places how you can get in, right? So, in all my career, I've worked, like I said, from system administrator to implementer to penetration testing to auditing, and some of the things that we talked about yesterday, which was like, do we need to have math background to be able to get into cyber? Those kind of things, I did even some of the things in cyber that I did not need math for. And it is that experience really that I'm bringing to the table that I will share with you. Not only I will tell you a little bit about the fundamentals, the key fundamentals about cybersecurity with that engineering background that I have in tech, you know, I have a little bit better view than a normal regular IT, like a normal regular cyber person, because I have the engineering, not only the engineering view, I bring that and put it together with the cyber. So I may sometimes work in the role of solution architect as well as a cybersecurity architect. Yes, so that's all about me. I'll be happy to answer any question that you may have, but I think
Thank
what I
you.
will give you today will be good enough for you to prepare you.
Thank you so much, Blaise, for introducing yourself. Before we get into what you prepared today, I wanted to ask a question that maybe will help students who are here, parents, or maybe even faculty who want to get some even deep knowledge in cybersecurity. My question is, what is the best way for beginners to break into cybersecurity today?
Uh, right. I think like for those who were not here yesterday, we answered the question if the cybersecurity is for me. Like the question is it cybersecurity for me? And we saw that with cybersecurity, everybody really have to be able to do it. Almost, I would say, everybody today is using some kind of phone, some kind of app on their phone, is playing some kind of video game or some kind of managing contact or doing WhatsApp or whatever
Doing
social
something
media
on
you're using.
internet. I mean,
Exactly.
doing something on internet because
Exactly.
yeah,
So, cybersecurity, it's for everyone, right? It's for everyone. So to get in is not very difficult, right? And there are multiple paths to get into cybersecurity. There's a path where you can learn yourself on in the field that you do your own lab, you do your own testing, you have your own small lab. These days, especially, you have a lot of tools that you can do online, and even in high school, you have already some script that you can download from Google and be able to do things. So there's one pathway where you can learn by yourself at home, right? And then there's also another path, that first part where we can call it hands-on or self-taught, right? You can to get in that way. That means you stay at home, you learn on yourself, by yourself, you do your hands-on, you do yourself, your lab, you practice your lab, you get some knowledge of Linux, you get some knowledge of Windows, you get some knowledge of Kali Linux, you get some knowledge of you know, most of, like your phone, even just your computer, and then that prepare you to be able to start looking maybe for an entry level position where you can maybe set up accounts or do something, change people password, or help maybe with with the tech, maybe implementing or installing new computers, which is what you would do at home with your kids, with your family as well. So that's one pathway, right? The other pathway is the pathway where you can start by doing some like certification, right? You can you can say, okay, I'm going to prepare for CompTIA Plus, I'm going to prepare for Network Plus, I'm going to prepare for Security Plus, right? Then you can go that pathway. That would be a second pathway. So the first pathway is self-taught and hands-on. The second pathway is the certification pathway. That means you will go and do some certification to prepare you to get into the field. And that certification will be there to validate the skills that you will acquire as part of your training, right? That would be your second way. But there's another way, which is going to school, right? Like you can go to school and you learn IT. And then in that case, then you can uh you can learn you know how to do the IT from school. So that's pretty much the academic route, right? We can call it the academic route because you go to school every day, you learn it, and then you practice it. So I think those are the three different pathway to get in. But the other pathway which I forgot to mention is by experience. Maybe you're working already, and maybe if one day there's an IT person that is missing, or as cyber person, support person is not there, and you have a little bit knowledge of computer, and then suddenly, you know, people call on to you. And then you start from there, maybe you start doing little things, and then before you know it, you become a, IT security analyst or IT security support person. So those are the different pathway that you can use. Um, when we will get to that point later, after we'll cover the fundamentals, I will give you all the different job roles like IT analyst and maybe IT support or maybe SOC analyst and things like that that you can get in when you have that basic knowledge to be able to do something in the enterprise. So that will be the way to get in.
Thank you so much. My last question before we get into the topic of today. What is the most important technical skills students should focus on right now? Is there
Uh,
any that you
well, um, I think yesterday we talked about I think we talked about math. There was a question about, is math needed? Um what do we need to be in IT, right? Security
Mhm.
is the job, is what everybody does. I gave you an example yesterday where I said if they give you 100 or 1,000 or $1 million, then the security will come right at that point where you have to fear for your life. You have to fear for who knows that you have $1,000, $1 million. You have to fear where you put the $1 million. You have to fear what room are you going to put it in your house, what kind of lock will be on your door, what kind of in your room, how are you going to put maybe a safe. What kind of lock are you going to put on the safe? Are you going to keep the key of the safe? Are you going to go give the key to somebody to keep? Are you going to get the police maybe to guard your house? Things like that. So the cybersecurity will apply to everybody. The security applies to everybody, but the cyber, remember, is just the digital aspect of security, and all of us today are involved to that, right? And since we are involved to that, that means if everybody is involved to that, that means there's no really, uh, you know, one technical skills that is needed for everybody. You can be, maybe you have no clue of what math is, and you are just a teacher, then you can teach cybersecurity. Right? You can teach cybersecurity. You can be maybe somebody who have no clue of math, no clue of teaching. Maybe you can be like a SOC analyst that just look at the log and find some kind of record. Then your whole role is to look at the log, or maybe reading the screen when you see an alert and say, "Oh, I saw an alert." We need to inform support too to look into that, right? So really it's for everybody, right? But there are some roles that require some technical skills, right? As we will talk about as we move in the fundamentals, you need to be able, if you're doing some roles, you're taking some roles that require technical knowledge, you need to have some technical knowledge, like be able to tell what's an IP address, what is a DNS, why do I need the IP address? What is it even the IP address? How do you get it from, when you're on a computer, how do you get the IP address? So what is a vulnerability? So those kind of things, may be needed for some roles that are technical, but there are still some roles that you can do without really technical knowledge. And I think yesterday we said you need to be able just to have there's one skills that are key, uh, being a solution finder, you know, be motivated to find solution to problem. If you have that, you don't need math, you don't need, special skills to be able to do that. You know that, okay, when I have a problem, I need to find the solution. I need to ask questions. Who, when, why, where, and try to put all the pieces together. If you can do that, you can do cybersecurity.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're
So,
welcome.
uh, let's open the floor to what you prepared for us today. Thank you so much for answering our questions. Please take the time to complete the attendance using the link in the chat, please. It's very important for us. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Blaise. I'll let you continue. Thank you.
I think somebody had a question.
Yes.
I
Do
have
we
a
have
question too.
any? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Kofi.
Okay. Yes. So thank you for your excellent presentation. I know at Hostos we are in the process of implementing a cybersecurity program. And then I like the fact that your background is engineering. Engineering, most of the time, they like hands-on. And then in cybersecurity, it's very important for a student too. So, when you talk about hands-on, I think virtual labs for the student to simulate real-world problems are very important. So maybe not now, but later I will like to have more information about virtual machines to simulate problems, uh, like hands-on problem for a student to really understand what they do, in cybersecurity.
Right. I think that's a great idea. That's
Mhm.
a great idea. Uh, a few years ago when when I was preparing for some of the certification, we didn't have the tools that we have today. Today we have a lot of resources. Just for example, the VMware workstation, which is the hypervisor that you use on your workstation to do a virtual machine, is free. Can you believe it? I used to pay like $260, or I don't even remember, maybe $300 to get it. And every year I had to update it and pay again. But now
Mhm.
it's free. A student can have it, right? For the routers, I used to work on the routers where I would to buy a router, it was very expensive. So we would, buy like an old router and be able to practice it. But today, people have GNS3, which are the tools that people can use to simulate things. So there are a lot more resources today uh, that allow people to be able to do virtual simulation without really having to put a lot of money up front. Yeah. So it's a good strategy if you want them to have a hands-on.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kofi, for the question, and thank you for the answer. So please continue. We are hungry to hear what you have today for us. Thank you so much.
Okay, I hope that you know, I will be able to answer every question. Just stop me every time that I'm speaking. Just feel
Okay.
I will not be disturbed if you ask a question as I progress. I always like questions because it helps me to learn and be able to be more precise and more specific. Because I can talk about some topic for a long time, but if you don't ask a question, I may not cover the angle that you're looking at. Yes, so one of the things that you wanted to cover for this workshop was about the fundamentals of cybersecurity. Before we talked about about the fundamentals of cybersecurity. What is cybersecurity about? Uh, Cybersecurity focus on different things. So one thing that it focus on is prevention, right? Is preventing or protecting digital resources, right? So that bad guys cannot get it. It could be bad guys, not necessarily people. It could be malware, it could be maybe phishing, it could be ransomware, right? So whenever you have a digital asset, when you're talking about cybersecurity, we're looking at preventing a cyber attack to that resource. That means attacking that resource online. Okay. So if you have, for example, your resources and you don't put it online, then you cannot talk about cybersecurity. Now, the other thing that you want to focus on when we're talking about cybersecurity is protecting sensitive data. So, for example, we talked about you having $1 million, right? We want to protect that. We don't want everybody to know that you have $1 million because suddenly your life is in danger. Maybe we write somewhere that Blaze has $1 million at his house on X Street, house number X, right? Then now people will try to get you. So that information is sensitive. So we need to protect it, right? Now, additional to that, there are other things that we have to look at. We have to ensure that every system, right, that we put online is protected. And how do we ensure that it's protected? That all the information are confidential, that the system is reliable, and that the system is available. Additional to that, we want to be able to detect when somebody accessed. We have $1 million, right? Maybe if you start counting those bills to get to million, it's going to be a lot. So you put it in the closet. You want to make sure that if somebody were to come and take a piece of it, then you will know, right? So that is called a detection. You want to be able to protect your system or the digital asset, uh, protect them to be able to detect the attacks whenever something attack it. The other things that we have to think about when we're talking about cyber is be able to recover, right? Maybe somebody come and get into our system. Maybe you have a virus or malware, a ransomware that comes and encrypt all your files, right? How do you recover? How do you recover? Right? So as we're talking about cybersecurity, we're thinking prevention, protection, ensuring that everything is confidential, reliable, and available. We're thinking about detecting attacks, right? And also actually responding to attack because we detect the attack. Oh, I saw that light turn red. Then what do we do? Right? That is called the incident response. And that's also one of the area that you can do incident response without even no clue of cybersecurity. right? You can just be there to know, okay, when I see a red light, we need to call John or we need to call Bob, and then we need to inform this person, and then we will kick on a certain process and so on. Then we need to think about when that incident happened. Okay, we know what to do. We know the incident response, but what do we do to recover? And that's what we call the recovering. Now, uh, we talked about cyber and tech. Sometimes people kind of mix the two. The tech guy is the person that can put the system together. Is the guy that know how to put the system together. The cyber guy is the guy that think about protection. In my current role, for example, my role is security architect. Usually, the solution architect will build an application. And as a security architect, I need to come and look at the solution and then now build the security around it. And if you're thinking about cyber, that's the kind of frame of mind you need to look at. Okay. There's a distinction between the tech and a cyber. The cyber is security, and then the tech is building the system, right? So now, thinking on the angle of cyber, what are the fundamentals? What are the key things that we need to know about cybersecurity? Uh, if you have heard about CISSP, there are three core domain that you need to be aware of when you're thinking about cybersecurity. And that is CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So confidentiality means what? That means something you have $1 million. We don't want anybody to be aware of it. We want to make sure that, that information is confidential. That means it's controlled, right? And not everybody will be, you don't want your sister to be able to know. If she doesn't need to know that you have $1 million, you want her to be in the blank. So you want to keep it confidential. And then also you want to limit by authorizing only certain people to be able to know that information. Here we are talking specifically in protecting the information, but it could be a data, it could be that $1 million itself. So there are two things here. We are thinking about that $1 million. The $1 million is something that you can touch. There's the information part of it, which you cannot touch. The fact that somebody will say, oh, you have $1 million. That's the information. It's not the data. The $1 million itself, you can touch it, you can count it, but the information is something else. So that's two kind of cybersecurity right there, right? So you need to control the information, which is information security, right? And the fact that you connect it on the network, now it becomes cybersecurity. Now the $1 million, then you want to save it, you want to protect it, you want to apply it and protect it. How do you protect it? What are the things? What is the access control mechanism that you have to put in there to make that $1 million is protected? All right. That is the confidentiality. That's the first pillar of the triad that ISC squared created. So for those who are familiar with CISSP, that's what the CISSP focus on. The second thing that we focus on is the triad focus on is the integrity. We talked about you have $1 million. Can you to count $1 million? It's not easy. You cannot count it. So you want to make sure that even though you put that $1 million in the safe, if something changed, you want to know about it. You want to be able to come and say, okay, it looks like that $1 million, somebody may have taken just like $1,000 out of it. And that's the integrity. So whenever you have a data, you want to make sure that it's accurate, right? And that it has not changed. So wherever you put it, you want to make sure that it's safe, is reliable. That's the second pillar. And then the third pillar, which is the last one, is the availability. So if you have a system, you have a money, you put it in the safe, you lock it with the key. If you throw the key away, you're done. You cannot get that money back because the safe is locked. Nobody has the key. The same thing in the cybersecurity, when you have it online, that availability is critical. You have a system, if the system is very secure, but if it's not available, then you do not have a good cybersecurity. So cybersecurity focus on those three pillars: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So those are the three cores. I will stop there for any question before we continue, if there's any question at this point.
Thank you so much. If there's any question, please feel free.
I think there is a question in the chat.
Okay. In the chat, Kathleen said, I heard cybersecurity also involves being able to hack the system in order to know the weak spots.
Yes,
It's
that's
more of a statement.
that's a good question. Okay, so yes, so yeah, that's a good question. I think that's also what we said yesterday. Part of like, we said that how do you know that cybersecurity is for you? You need to be a person that like to break things, right? You like to see how things works. That part of labbing, doing the lab, and when you're doing cybersecurity, not every person in cybersecurity would do the lab and try to break it. But your role, if you are in a position that require technical skills, you need to be able to do that. You need to do that or learn to do that, because you need to be able, when you have a system, to assess the security of that system. And usually in the field, that's called penetration testing, or vulnerability assessment. So when you have a system to design, or if you're designing the security of a system, or you're assessing the security of a system, you are testing to see how you can break it. And that's the skills, yes, that you need for cybersecurity. Not everybody, like I said, need to have that. But if you're doing penetration testing, if you're working in a role where you're supporting penetration tester, yes, that's something you want to be able to do. The other thing that we said earlier, we said about preventing cyber attack, right? When we say we are preventing cyber attack, we're preventing a hacker. The hacker is a bad guy, right? Who comes and try to break your system. So that is called a hacker. But you yourself, if you want to identify those vulnerability before the hacker can get in, you have to try to do that. And that's why we do penetration testing. Normally, in certain area, before you put a system online, you need to do what we call that penetration testing, where you assess the system to see if the system can be broken by a hacker. And on the endpoint, like on a computer, we talked about malware, right? Where you need to have like antivirus and things like that. Yes. So you need it at different level. Depends on what position you're in.
Thank you so much. Any other question, please? Please feel free to ask your question.
All right. If not, then let's move on to the next one regarding the fundamentals. The second thing that you want to know about fundamentals of cybersecurity is authentication and authorization. One day I was speaking during they invited me for a presentation, and then I was talking up to the employee of a company, and then I talked about authentication and authorization, and I told them, well, you're designing your system. Your policy says that authentication is required, but your policy doesn't say that authorization is required. And you can build, if you build a system that, that require authentication, your policy will be respected because that's what your policy requires. It didn't mention about authorization, it just mentioned about authentication. And one of the employees said, no, that's not true. Authentication always go with authorization. Okay. So every time when I have the opportunity to talk about cybersecurity, I want to make that distinction so that everybody can be very clear on what authentication is and what authorization is. Authentication usually wants to know who you are, right? It wants to know who you are. If you think about it, you are a guard in front of their house, and somebody comes and want to get in the house, then you can ask them, show me your ID, right? You show me your ID. When you take the ID is to check to see that they are who they say they are. And that is called authentication, okay? Which is different from authorization. I may check your authentication and say, okay, yes, you're Bob. Your ID said you're Bob. Now, authorization is, are you allowed to do something? I may see that you're Bob, but you're not authorized to get in. You're Bob, but sorry, you cannot get in, right? So those two concepts sometimes are mixed up, but they are different. Authentication, again, is to show who you say you are. And then the authorization is you are allowed to do something. And how do we use that in the computer? Before you log onto your computer, when you come on your computer, you have your username Bob, and then you have your password. You put password, and then you can get in. When you put that password, then the system use those two to be able to say, okay, yes, it's you, right? Because the password is something that you know. But if I come and see your username, I have your password, I can still put that password, I'll be able to get in. That authentication will get in, right? So now, when you're on the system, that means you're authenticated. Now, what are you authorized to do? What can you do once you're authorized? When you're authenticated? When you're authenticated, you can get to the system. You may not be able to do certain things. You can open Word, you can open Excel. Maybe if you're on Windows, on Linux, you can open the terminal. Maybe you can run certain things. But some other things you may not be able to run, right? And some of the common mechanisms that are used for authentication it's usually password that we talked about everybody having a password. There's also something called the multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication means you're using two-factor. So if, for example, single factor is when you have your username and your password. So that means your username is known, and then what you know is your password. So you have only one factor. Multi-factor means you can have two factors. Two factors means you can have maybe a password, and then you can have maybe a token or something physical that you own. It can be your fingerprint. It can be your face, or or what they call biometric. So those are the three major, right, tools or mechanisms that are used for authentication. And remember that the authentication, as we talked about earlier in the triad, confidentiality, access controls. So those mechanisms allow us to be able to control the access, right? Now, when we talk about authorization, we're thinking about what can somebody do? Okay, you're authenticated, but what can you do when you get on the system? In most cases, they are using what they call the role-based access control. Role-based access control means they give you the access based on your role, but it can also happen that they give you access based on a group. So if you're maybe in a group of whatever group we set up, we can say, okay, if you're in this group, you can do this. If you're in this group, you can do this. So those are the different mechanisms that you can use for authentication and authorization. And the authentication and authorization, as I spoke earlier, fits into confidentiality. or access control, right? Now, the other thing that we think about when we talked about the cybersecurity fundamental is encryption, right? How now, if I have my password, I write it on the paper, I leave it in my closet. Somebody get into my closet, they will know my password, right? So now I have to think about how do I protect that? So even though I have it, not everybody can see it. I can put it in the closet, you can get in, but you cannot see it. If I type it on Notepad in my computer, I just save it. Everybody who gets on my computer, even when I'm not there, they can get it, right? That's where the encryption comes into place. And encryption is still part of the confidentiality, is to protect the data. We need to protect the data even when the data is not moving. We can protect the data in two states, the state where the data is sitting there, and then the state where the data is moving. If the information is moving, I use data and information here interchangeably because it's the same thing. Whatever you're protecting, you need to protect it at rest, you need to protect it in transit. So if you're protecting it at rest, that means you have to encrypt it. That information that I put on my paper for my password, maybe instead of just putting it in clear text, I just scramble it somehow and then put some like a code on my paper. Now, if you look at that code, you won't know my password, right? So on the computer, there's something that we call the encryption. And when you use the encryption to protect something, when you encrypt, for example, your password, then you take your text and then change that text into something that you cannot read. Even if you see it, you cannot tell what the password is. And I think two things that I mentioned earlier, you have to protect it at rest, and then you have to protect it in transit. When you go, for example, to a website, if you see HTTPS, that means the information that you're exchanging with that website is protected in transit, right? That data is moving in transit is protected. That HTTPS that you see in your browser, that's the protection in transit. But now, if you're in cybersecurity, you wanted to protect that data, you need to also look at the aspect. When the data get to that server, how do they protect it? Right? Maybe I write, okay, Bob has $1 million. I protect it in transit and send it. And then on the server over there, they put it in clear text, and then the administrator opens it. Right? Now, that's a data leak. Right? That's a data leak. So that is not good. Now, if you protect it, what are the mechanisms that you can use? What are the different type of encryptions that we usually use? There are two main type of encryption. There's what we call the symmetric encryption, and there's also the asymmetric encryption. In the symmetric encryption, you encrypt something using a password. You have a password, you put it in the system, it uses that password that you put, it will encrypt it, and then you can share that encrypted data with somebody, and that person or whatever, or that system, whatever system get that encrypted data, they can unencrypt it using uh using that passphrase that you set. But the other aspect is asymmetric, which you use two separate keys. You have to use one key that you make available to everybody, and you have like a key that is private that you call a private key, and that's the asymmetric key encryption. Uh, that is another kind of encryption. But the encryption itself, cybersecurity, there are some people that are expert in that. Not everybody will know about encryption, right? But those are still one of the tools that fit into the confidentiality. But you do not need to know about, symmetric key encryption or asymmetric key encryption to do cybersecurity, like we said earlier. Uh, the other thing that we talked about when we talk about when you're doing cybersecurity, you need to be able to break system, right? We talked about that is called the risk management. You need to be able to identify how can somebody break the system? That is called to identify the threats, right? You need, whenever you have a system or whatever data or whatever you're protecting, you need to be able to identify the threats. And when you identify the threats, by learning where you can break in, you're learning about the vulnerabilities, right? And by learning the vulnerabilities, then you can find what can be the impact if your adversary can, where to find that vulnerability, right? And now that you know about your weak point, which is your vulnerabilities, and you know about the impacts, then you can find some way to mitigate it. There's a word called mitigate. You will see that a lot in cybersecurity. Mitigate means to be able to put something to bring that risk down. And that is called risk management. And the risk management is another area of cybersecurity. You do not need to be a math ways to do it. Everybody can do it. Risk management is just be able to identify the threat without even being technical. You can identify the threat. You can do risk management. Okay, what is the risk? What's the vulnerability? What is the impact? What control can we apply to reduce the risk? Right? And that uh if we look at what I said earlier about ensuring that the system or the ensuring the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data, you need to take that risk management into consideration. That risk management is not only in cyber. If you whatever you're doing is a risk, you're managing risks. You are leaving the house to go to school at 7, right? Your class start at 7:30. You don't know what can happen on the road. If you think about it, oh, maybe there could be traffic. Okay, why don't I leave maybe a little bit more earlier? That is a risk management. Risk management is everywhere. You manage it everywhere, even in your job, even in your investment, even in everything that you do, there's some risk, right? You left the house at 7, you wanted to get there at 7:30 on the road, there's traffic. Now you cannot get there on time, right? That was a risk. If you have thought, you have taken the time to think about it, then you could have said, okay, there's a possibility that I can be stuck in traffic. I'm not sure that I'll get there 7:30 exactly. So then what do I do? Then I need to apply some controls to reduce that risk, right? And the control that you can apply in this case is maybe saying, okay, now I'm going to leave the house a little bit early, maybe 15 minutes earlier, just in case. I will get there maybe at 7:15 and then I can wait 15 minutes, right? So that risk management is everywhere. It's in everything that we do. You're using a knife to chop something in the kitchen, there's a risk. There's a risk. You can cut your hands, right? There's a risk. You just don't know it. It's not just in cybersecurity that we're managing the risk. We're managing the risk in everything that we do. And additionally to risk management, another thing that is fundamental to cybersecurity is what they call the security policies and governance. The security policy and governance is like every company need to have some kind of documented procedure that allow them to know how to know their culture as far as security is concerned based on what they have, right? So it can be, if you hear about policy just means rule pretty much. It can mean rules, it can be procedure, it means, what you need to do, what people need to follow. I mentioned earlier, for example, where I said that the policy say you need to have authentication. If you have a system, you need to have authentication. That's a rule. That's the policy. If you go to the store, you buy something, you come back 45 days later, they say, oh, our return policy said we cannot take it back. So it's exactly the same thing that we're talking about here, but just that it's applied to security, right? And the other aspect that goes along with security policy is called the governance. The governance has to do with compliance, right? And then the legal requirements. So the compliance is, are you doing the thing based on the standard that has been set, right? For example, the governance, if you have, for example, in public school, for example, they have some policies where, for example, they cannot give your kid to somebody unless you can sign a paper with their name or whatever, right? You need to be compliant to that if you want that to happen. So the same thing in security, you will have something like that where you have security policies and governance, right? So those are the different aspects still that goes into cybersecurity. Uh, I think the other piece that we talked about a little bit is the threats, right? The threats and the vulnerability. The threat and the vulnerability has to do with things like the attacker reaching to your system, the malware, the phishing, the social engineering, maybe the system that is not coded properly, like if you didn't, if the system is not configured properly, then you may have some flaws into your system, and that is called a vulnerability. If you hear about, oh, my phone need to be updated. Every time that you hear about your phone or your computer being updated, it's just because they have detected that there's a threat or there's a vulnerabilities and they need to patch. They use the word updates or patch. To update means to close some of the vulnerability that that were detected into the software. And it can be from misconfiguration, from the way that the system was coded, or it can be, something that just happened because they did another patch. Sometimes you may patch a system and then that same system that you just patch create another hole and you have to fix it, right? So those are the um, different things that go under that triad to cover the core component for cybersecurity. So I will pause here to see if there's any question before we move on to look at the specialization areas when you're
Thank
doing
you so
cyber.
much. Thank you so much, guys. Oh, we have a question from Kathleen. Yes, please.
Hi, I was just curious, is the interview process the same for cybersecurity employment? Like,
Yes.
oh, okay, like the same it would be if you're just going in for like full stack developer.
Yes. You remember the maybe the cyber is even easier. If you go for full stack developer, what they will usually do is they may give you a code or a problem and say to code. In cyber, most of the time you will not do anything like that. But in some cases, for some position, they may ask you, they may give you a problem that you need to solve. For example, when I interview people for like security architect, I'll give them like an application, like an example of application, and I would like them to be able to um, walk me through how they kind of secure that application, right? Because that's how you know if they know what they're doing. So, but most of the time, cyber is a little bit, I would say it's a little bit easier than like a full stack, in my opinion.
Nice, thank you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
What I can add also is that most of the case in cyber you can have as he said, a real case scenarios. Like this is a situation that happened, and they want to see how you reason, how
Yeah,
you walking, the steps that you are going to take, if it's risky or if you're going to shut down the whole system. So things like that. It's not like coding. As full stack, they will put you on the board. They will ask you to code or maybe give you a computer for the maybe second rounds or over the. Here it's mostly like how do you reason, your reasoning skills and your approach to the solution.
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. So another question before we
Yes, I
continue.
have a question about updating systems. Most of the time when they ask me to update, I don't do it. So what are the risks when I fail to update my system? Can be my phone or can be any other thing.
Yes, that's a very good question. But I think today, at this point, it's very rare for the updates to break a system. It used to be like a couple of years ago that sometimes you update the system and your system do not come back. But the things have improved so much that most of the time when you have the updates, they will apply and your system will work just fine. Now, what happens if you do not update, right? So when they are updating, right, they are fixing some vulnerabilities, right? And some vulnerabilities may be exploitable, which means a bad guy can use it to actually get something or even do something that is harmful to your system. And some vulnerabilities may not be necessarily harmful to your system. So if you don't update it, that means that vulnerability will remain into your system. And if it's a vulnerability that is exploitable, then a bad guy may exploit it. Yeah.
Okay.
But this day is better to, if you can update, maybe just choose the right time. Uh, it's very rare these days for the update to break the system, but it can still happen. It can still happen. It's still a possibility.
Okay. Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Do we have another question before? Okay, we have a question in the chat from Isida. What about compromised passwords?
Compromised password. Well, whenever you have a compromised password, it's better to change your password right away whenever you notice it. Because think about it. If I have your password, I can do whatever you can do, right? So if your password has been compromised, that means that somebody can just log on to the system just as you do. If it's your bank account password, then I can log on to your bank account just like you do. I can initiate a transfer just as you do. Um, you know, that's 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 what it's all about when your password is compromised. So the best way to fix that is to change your password right away.
Thank you. We don't have any more questions for now. Please, those who did not fill out the attendance sheet, please fill out the attendance, please. Thank you. Sister, you can continue. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. So if I were to add something regarding the interview for cybersecurity, I mentioned about a couple of things that it's critical, right, for cybersecurity that are called cybersecurity fundamentals. That triad, right, the CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That is critical for somebody interviewing for cybersecurity to have that knowledge, to have at least know what that means. You want to be able to know about encryption. What is it? What is encryption? What is risk management? What is security policy? What is threat and vulnerability? Those things are not, I don't think that is really applied to cybersecurity. It's things that you should know, even at work, even when you go to a store, those are things that applies. But like I said, it's not every role that will require that knowledge, right? Some role may require less than that. Yeah. So then let's move on to talking about what are the specialization areas, right? We talked about different things. We said that the triad is the core. And in the triad, we have the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So everything that we talked about, encryption, risk management, security policies and governance, all those fit into those three pillars, right? Now, when you look at those three pillars, what are the different roles that somebody can get when they come into a company, right? When you are in a company, there are many specialized area that you can be in. You can maybe specialize in network security, right? In the network security, your specialization is to protect networks, right? You protect network from intrusion. And that's something, where you learn about firewalls, intrusion detection system, intrusion prevention system. You learn about VPNs, right? And those are the different things that a network security specialist must know. So if you see a role and they're talking about network security specialist, then you need to think about those things. And how does that fit with the triad? The firewall and IDS and VPNs, those fit in the confidentiality, even though they may also include a little bit of availability and integrity, they are part of the confidentiality. That's the first specialization. The second specialization that you can think about, it's the application security. Uh, I heard about full stack. If you're doing full stack, then you have to, if you want to move into cyber, you can make a slow move into application security. The application security has to do with securing the software and web application, or doing secure coding, or doing penetration testing, right? So those are application security. And as I mentioned earlier, another thing that people get confused with regarding penetration testing, some people think that vulnerability assessment and penetration testing is the same thing. No, it's not. Vulnerability assessment, that means you scan the system to find out the weak point on the system. The penetration testing, that means that you have identified some of the weak points and you want to use those weak points to get into the system, to actually get the honey, as we usually say it, right? And as we said earlier regarding if you don't patch, for example, your system and you have a vulnerability, what's the risk? Yeah. Yes, if you have a risk, if you have a vulnerability, and that vulnerability is exploitable. Exploitable means that when you do a penetration testing, you can take advantage of that vulnerability to actually do some harm. Uh, if you don't patch the system, yes, that's something you can be victim of. Then application security will be uh, those people that work in that area. Another specialty that you will find is the information security. We talked about earlier where you have $1 million, and we talked about the $1 million, which is what we can touch, and the information, right, which is the fact that you have, right? That information need to be protected, and that is information security. So sometimes people confuse cybersecurity and information security. The information is that you have $1 million. We need to protect that. We don't want everybody to know that you have $1 million. We don't want everybody to know where you put the $1 million. So we need to protect that information. So that area has to do with protecting the information, protecting the data, regardless of where it lives. And also it has sometimes to do with the classification. How do we classify that information? How do we protect it? Right? Now you have $1 million. I want to write it on a paper. I want to make sure that that paper on the digital form, if I put it on the notepad, I want to encrypt it. Now I encrypt the notepad. Who can get it? Can somebody send it to somebody? Then we have to think about what we call the data loss prevention, which is another kind of system that prevent data loss, right? The data loss prevention is a system that will prevent people from sending maybe files off the network without you knowing. So that's the third area, which is the information security. Another area of cyber that another specialty that you can still get into is the cloud security. Everybody is talking about cloud these days. There are three major clouds: AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, right? And you can do security for Google, you can do security for AWS, you can do security for Azure, right? You can do, in cloud security, you can do things like identity management. You can do cloud service configuration, and your role is just to configure the system to make sure that it's secure. You can also just manage the user, which is called the identity management. Identity management just means that you manage the user. You can reset people password, you can create accounts, and those things like we said in the path earlier about the different paths that you can take, you can practice those things by yourself. You can learn it in school. You can learn it on the, with the hands on the ground. It depends on what pathway you're using, right? And then there's another area which is the endpoint security, right? That's the fifth area. The fifth area is endpoint security. The endpoint security has to deal with protecting the device or the endpoints. So you have like a phone, you have a laptop, you have a computer, you have a server. How do we protect the laptop? How do we protect the phone? How do we protect the server? We need to have antivirus. We need to have anti-malware. We need to have data loss prevention. We need to have host-based firewall. What do we, there are a lot of other security that we can put on the endpoint. We need to have maybe um, inside user or inside trust employee risk management tools, right? You can put even tools on the system to, on the endpoint. So in big companies, there are people that are just there for endpoint security. There are people that are just there for network security. There are people that are just there for application security. There are people that are just there for information security. And there are people who are just there for cloud security, right? You will not see in most company, not everybody will be doing all those things. And then not last, but there's also security operations center. Now, we talked about, do you need math? No. You can maybe just sit in the security operations center and look at the screen. And when you see a red, you can just call somebody and say, okay, I see this alert. Can we do something? We need to do this and export the tickets. That is cybersecurity too, right? That is called monitoring. The Security Operations Center has to do with monitoring. So those are the people that monitors the system to make sure that the system is not attacked. And even if the system is attacked, they need to notify and do incident response to know what needs to be done, right? So it's also part of, in most cases, you will hear about incident response. That means to detect when there's an attack and be able to respond and fix the issue. That is part of the Security Operations Center. And then the seventh area of, of specialization is also what we call the penetration testing and ethical hacking. Uh, Somebody said that when you have doing cybersecurity, you want to be able to break, do you need to learn how to break? Yes, those are the people that will do the penetration testing and ethical hacking. So what they would do is that they will simulate the attack to find weakness into the system. And usually, if they find it, then they will fix it. If they don't find it, then they may hire somebody. You may hire some consultant to do that penetration testing for you. But if you have enough staff internally, you can do that. Most company will hire like specialists to do those kind of tasks for them. But it doesn't exclude that the company cannot have the penetration testing team. And then additional to that, there's also the digital forensic and incident response team, right? The forensic and incident response, they have to do with investigation. A couple of years ago, when I was working as penetration testing, I've done a couple of digital forensic and incident response where they, two or three company call me in to come and investigate a cyber incident where I had to look at the different log, right? I'll bring the tool, install it on the server, scan the network, and try to find all the pieces and do some investigation to be able to explain exactly what happened before the system came down. Right? Was it an intrusion? Was it why? Why did the system go down? So that is part of the digital forensic and incident response. That is still one specialty that is in the cybersecurity. Now, there's another one which is called the governance, risk, and compliance that we talked about earlier. The governance, risk, and compliance is the people that manages the policies. It can be also the audits. The audit team, I think some people who have heard about accounting, there are a lot of people in accounting that will do audits. In cyber, it's the same. You can do audits. You can do audits, cybersecurity audits. You do not need to be an expert. You do not need to be a technical person to be able to do it. You just need to be able to understand enough to be able to check, okay, is this there? Is this not there? I check. Is this there? Is this not there? I check, right? And then there's a compliance which has to do with standards. For example, I mentioned about PCI, for example, if you're processing credit card, there's a standard that you should not keep all the information of that credit card on your system after you process the transaction because, that's the standard. So you need to have your system and make sure that whenever you process a credit card, you do not keep all the detailed information of that credit card. So that's compliance. And that too, you can be part of it. You can write policies. To write policies, you do not need to be too much technical. You can take the technical pieces, put it together, and do the writing of the policy without being too technical. You can do it. Excuse me. The other, um, the last one that I've alluded to is the identity and access management. We talked about managing the user, managing the identity. If you're on the company on premises, you can manage, create account, delete account, change password, uh, you know, troubleshoot people username and password and things like that. We can do that on prem, we can do that in the cloud. So those are the different specialties that you can do when you are in cyber. At this point, I can stop there for any question.
Thank you so much. We have some questions in the chat. What can happen if you before that? I think we have another question. How do you know you have a compromised password? And I would like to share for that question. I think everybody should take this link, email, password. Let me share this. Everybody, please, you can click on this and check if your password is secure or not. Everybody can click on this. And yesterday we shared another link that allow us to check if your email is also, have you been found? I want everybody who didn't do that yesterday, please. Right? So, do you have something to add on that, please, for the question? How to,
Uh,
yes.
yeah, that tool that you have is good. You can just find you can maybe even just type on Google to try to see. You should be able to find it. If you're on the phone, sometimes your phone, like if you have Apple phone, they can notify you that your password has been found on dark web.
Yes.
Yeah, those are the different ways to find it.
Yes. Please fill out the attendance sheet for those who did not yet. The other question was, what can happen if you deposit a check to your bank account, which you ignore that check is fake?
Um, Depending on the bank, if the check is fake, they may charge you because the check will bounce, right? So depending on the bank, they may charge you a fee.
I think if the check is fake, they will investigate also. Sometimes they
Yeah.
investigate to see, because I have a case like that, and someone actually trick someone to say, okay, cash it and remove the money and give it to me. I will do this and keep the rest. But by the time the check went through, the bank took time to investigate. They actually even blocked the person account because it was kind of something very, very hard. So because the person didn't have the money to balance when at the time when they found out it, so they blocked the account of the person. He couldn't access his account anymore. So please, yes, fraud. That's actually fraud. Thank you, Professor. So please click on the links and feel free to ask questions because we have a few minutes left. Click on the links. Everybody check if your password is secure. Those sites are HTTPS, as you can see. So those are very valid and secure URLs. So I'm going to share something that everybody can also check. While we are taking questions, feel free. Okay, Anita has a question. Yes.
Thank you
Please check
so
the
much.
chat and click on the link.
My question is, what is among all the different, I guess I can say specializations in cybersecurity that you just mentioned, which one doesn't require much coding?
Almost all of them except application security do
Okay.
not require coding. The only place where you need the coding is application security.
Okay. Thank you.
And even that is a light coding.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the question, Anita. Thank you. So I'm sharing here the live cyber threat map that I believe everybody will like to save this link to, to explore this. What do you understand? What do you see on this? What is happening here before we actually go into it? When you're looking, I'm expecting everybody to say something on this, right? So when you're looking here, what is happening? I know the title says Live Cyber Threat Map. How many attacks do we have on this day? How many attacks?
4, or is that?
Is it here?
Oh,
This
that's
is on this day is here,
Okay,
right?
29.
So which country? What do we see? Or what can you say about United States? Because you can see countries from where the attack is being generated, and you have some countries here like Africa. Why we don't have any activities here? For example, why we don't have? What could be the reason why we are having some activities in some countries and why we don't have any maybe attacks? For example, here at this moment, what could be the reason? As you see here, you can see where the attack is going, and it's live. Okay, it's live. You can see that we have something happening between the U.S. and you can see that countries who are very connected to internet, right? Because to be hacked, to have those kind of fraud, you need to be connected on the internet. Some countries, it's not like they don't have connection, but it's kind of limited, right? They don't, they're not very vulnerable like some countries in US or Europe. Some countries, of course, now it's like nighttime in some countries. You can also say maybe they are not, but things can happen even when the people are sleeping, right? So on the right side here, you're gonna see top target countries: Ethiopia, Nepal, Indonesia, right? Highest rate. What could be the reason? Let me go in the chat. Maybe some people are saying something there. Limited internet access in Africa. Yeah, that could be the reason.
Yeah, but there could be like less monitoring or like going on there, or like less use, or they are their own systems, their own network.
Yeah, those could be the reason why. So you can see also the top targeted industries: education, right? Government, telecommunication, right? So try to play around with this, and this is very, very interesting, right, for everybody to know. So I have another link that could, you can click and read even more information, and that will help. Let me stop sharing. I think I stopped sharing this. Okay, so the last link that I want to share with everyone today is this one. I'm gonna put in the chat. Everybody can click on this. share cyber. Okay. Am I sharing my screen? Yes. Yes. Okay. I see. Okay. So now, what is the number one or the most targeted country? I'm expecting everybody to answer because I gave you the link, right?
Russia.
Russia, yes, good, yes, Russia. And you can click, please play around with this, click around and try to see, play with all countries and see. You can even read and get more information, right? If, if you click on Afghanistan, for example, it will give you some information here. You can also go on statistics, right? It will give you maybe, yes, here, most infected today. You have some information. Why Russia is the most targeted country, according to this report. And you can also see historical data here, right? It will give you some information. You can click on that and get, learn. Right? I always say when you get into a new field, you need to even subscribe to newspaper and cybersecurity, right? So if it's AI, subscribe to to newspaper, paper online, right? We have some journals. They give you free information every day about what is happening, and that's how you maybe can decide, okay, I want to really do this because you are expose yourself every day, try to know what is happening, right? So it's very important. So you can click on this link, it give you more information, right? So data sources you can have also. You can read, right? They will give you more information. You can click on everything here, right? So know a little bit more. You want to know more, you click on this. It will bring you to a page where you can read a little bit more about what your next field, or maybe something you are just interested because of knowledge, right? So you can click on that, and it's very, very, very. You can come back to the map. So I want everybody to play with this before tomorrow, so that everybody will share at least one thing, right? When I'll give you the attendance, I'll ask you question. What did you learn? Right? That you can answer one question. What is interesting? What do you find interesting about all this? Abilities. Click on that. Play around. You know, play around, can even share, because the more the more we can protect ourselves. Cybersecurity is real. It's not only a matter of maybe getting into field or maybe changing a major. Everybody needs to be knowledgeable about what is happening. If you guys are in New York, we have a new program coming soon of cybersecurity. We encourage parents, to share news with their kids, especially high schools. And we are going to have more sessions like this, right? Did you guys learn something so far? Any
Yes.
question? Okay, good, 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 good. Thank you so much for joining. So do we have any last question before we wrap up today? Dr. Kofi, any question? Thank you everyone for joining. If you feel free to ask questions, thank you, Mr. Thank you everyone. Any last question? How was the session today? Who did not
Very
who did
informative.
not fill out the attendance yet? Who did not fill out the attendance?
Dr.
Please,
Kofi.
please fill out my attendance sheet. Any hands? I see a hand up. Please
No.
feel free to share something. You have a comment for is it Blaise, please?
Great session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. Very informative. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Regina. Thank you, everyone. So I'll see you everybody tomorrow,
Tomorrow.
6 p.m. We are
We
starting at 6 p.m. Please join.
oh
We are
6
going.
p.m. or 7? Oh, 6.
No,
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah,
6. We are starting at 6. It's from 6 to 7:30. Please join on time. It's gonna be very fun. We have another guest speaker tomorrow. Please, just it's gonna be
We're getting
very
the certificate tomorrow.
no, you need to get the exam first, so you know.
You need to attend.
Yes, we're gonna give you certificates.
So
Thank you.
yes,
Yes.
bring somebody else. Don't come. Bring
Yeah,
friends.
yeah, please
Children,
share
parents. Share things.
with your friends, neighbors, even family
Okay.
members. They need to
Don't
know
come alone.
about come with your wives,
It's
kids.
a
Don't come
it's a
alone.
it's a gospel. It's evangelization. That's good.
That's right. Spread the word.
Yes. Spread
My
the
kids are
word.
actually here right now too. I called them in here when you started sending us links. They really like this.
Oh, that's good. Thank you, Captain. Thank you. It's very good because everybody needs to be secure. How about if mommy protect the security of the house and she locks the door and then the chargers open the doors to
That's the
strangers,
thing.
So we have to educate our family members. We will give you service. Please participate even with kids and, share with everyone who were connected. Please, it will
Yeah.
help us to have more like this and help even more people. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank
And
you.
I
Thank
expect
you,
tomorrow
everybody.
we have another guest speaker you don't want to miss. So,
Oh my
Bye.
goodness.
Bye. Bye.
Professor Bless, I
Okay.
have a question for you. Good.
Oh,
Yes.
oh,
Hello,
Amelia, you were
everybody.
sleeping.
No, I'm here.
You wake up now?
No, I was not
When everybody is
sleeping.
leaving, you wake up? Oh,
No,
man.
I was not sleeping.
thank you, Captain. Thank you, everyone.
But I
Thank
can
you.
see your
Professor Bless,
Thank
face.
you,
I
Titus,
have,
for joining again. Thank you.
I have a question.
Amelia has a question.
I have a question for Professor Blaze.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Professor Blaze, I want to know, to be a cybersecurity, you need to have a more knowledge about programming and coding, or they have another fear on the cybersecurity you can do without coding.
No, you don't need coding.
Um,
Some of the key skills that you need, I think you need to know a little, like I mentioned, there are different area of speciality. Where you need coding is for application security. But for all the other fields, you may need some skills in networking. If you want to know like detail like TCP/IP, DNS, HTTPS, HTTP, firewalls. You need to know about operating system like Linux, Windows, need to know if you're interested in just like SOC, like Security Operations Center, you don't even need to know a lot of this networking and operating system thing because for monitoring, you can just sit and look at the log, right? You just sit there and look at the log. They will tell you what to look for. But if you want to go a little bit deeper, you may need to know about Wireshark, Meta exploit. You may need to know a little bit about cloud, like AWS, Google, Azure, know about vulnerability assessment and patching, right? So all those things there's no trace of coding. And you need to be able to do, like we talked about yesterday, the skills of problem solving. You have to have this. If you have the problem solving skills, the threat analysis skills, log analysis skills, you can do it. You can do it. And you need soft skills as well. Communication. Communication is critical too. Communication, attention to detail, ethical thinking,
so
continuous learning.
what about mathematics background? If you go to mathematics,
No,
it's
math
nothing
is
really
not.
about
Mm-mm,
cybersecurity.
mm-mm.
Okay.
Math is not. If you're doing, for example, networking, you may need to know a little bit of math, but not much. I would say if you have high school math, you should be good
See,
to do most of it.
your math is good, Amelia.
I know.
Your math is enough.
Thank you so
Amelia, don't
much.
don't run away for programming, Amelia.
Tomorrow we're gonna have some
Thank you.
some small session where Blaise will help, in 30 minutes at the end for those who want to practice and see what a virtual lab looks like. It's level simulation. So tomorrow, if you have some time after the guest speaker, we'll do something. So at least you have a clue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
for this
I will see you tomorrow. Please
Oh,
share the news.
okay.
Yes, thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Bye bye, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye
All right.
bye.
Thank you
Bye
for
bye.
joining, everyone.